to attend. So just noting that, and yeah, hopefully it's okay with everyone, because we know YouTube is a great way to get this information to farmers. So we're gonna get started now officially. So welcome everyone. This is a 3-part webinar series that we're really excited to bring to you all on e-commerce success stories for the value-added producer. And throughout this webinar series, we're gonna learn how producers are using online tools for their management and sales. And today's webinar is featuring Fillmore Farms, who produces organic walnuts. And the majority of the time today is going to be dedicated towards him sharing with you what he's all about and what he's been doing. And then at the end, we're going to have time for Q&A. So we'll go ahead and get started to make sure he has all the time we can give him. Real quick with the learning objectives, this is what we're planning to cover today, just so everyone knows what's on the table. So our general webinar series, the learning objective is to learn how farms have developed their businesses to include value-added products and how they've navigated all the various logistics and fulfilling those orders with e-commerce, shipping them nationwide. And we're also going to learn why farms choose specific online systems for business management. So Ryan's going to be touching on his experiences with Google Suite, WordPress for their website, Hostmonster for website hosting and other tools that they've been using as well. We're also going to be learning about marketing best strategies throughout the webinar series. And this is also an opportunity to learn about what CAF provides, especially regarding our small farm tech hub, which is helping to host this webinar series and other resources that we provide farmers across California. So just a bit about us quickly, in case some folks don't know who CAF is. We are a nonprofit community alliance with family farmers that works across California to support small family farms. We advocate for family farmers, sustainable agriculture, and we're working through a lot of policy advocacy and on-the-ground programs that create more resilient family farms, communities, and ecosystems. Here's a snapshot of some of the work that we do at CAF. So we have multiple programs and pathways for supporting family farmers such as yourself. Always feel free to reach out to us directly if any of these buckets are piquing your interest. And this session in particular is brought to you by the Farmer Services Program, and we provide support on food safety, farm technology, and fire resilience. So this is just one little snapshot of everything that we do. This is funded by the USDA Agriculture Marketing Services, so have some language here reflecting that as well. I mentioned the Small Farm Tech Hub, but I'll be showing the slide again at the very end. It's a newer program at CAF, so I just want to make sure to plug it to make sure you're aware that we have a lot of free resources through this website that you see here, caf.org/tech hub. A lot of videos, tutorials, how to use various tools that are free for your farm business. And we're also providing free one-on-one technical assistance to farmers in food business or farm-related food businesses operating in California, such as food hubs and farmers markets. So feel free to follow that link and request for direct support if that interests you. All right, now we're gonna jump right in. The whole point of today is to give Ryan the platform to share what he's been working on in regards to farm technology. So I'm gonna go ahead and close or stop sharing for me, and then you can take it away, Ryan.
Cool. Well, we were talking about how much time to spend on this presentation, and unfortunately we are limited by time. And so I'm going to go at a little bit of a speedy pace. And let's see, that you guys able to see the screen okay now, Elizabeth? Cool. All right, we're going to race on through it, cover a lot of material. There's lots more information available, both as Elizabeth was describing through CAF, all sorts of other resources online. So I'm going to throw out some resources for you. But this is kind of a combination of how to plus how we decided to do it. And so please don't take anything that we're doing as being the only way to do it, because there are lots of ways of doing it. Please also, I want to emphasize that when Elizabeth was saying he and him, and that's the way that he's doing it, I want to say they and we, because my wife laughed and was like, what do you know about selling online? I do all the work. And that's correct. I get involved at some of the higher level stuff, and but I'm the one that likes to talk. And so I got nominated to do this today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Fillmore Farms, how and why we sell online. Well, a little bit about us. We've been farming here in Gridley since about 1917. My great-grandfather moved here along with my grandfather when he was fairly young. And my kids on living here on the farm. We're actually 5th generation. So we've been here for a while. There's a picture of us putting up our anniversary sign. We've done a lot of things over the years, but lately we've been focusing on organic walnuts. And we planted most of our orchards about 20 years ago. And we've been looking at ways of making sure that the most money comes back to the farm rather than getting caught in the middle people, so that when people are spending food dollars, some of that money comes back to the farm rather than being stuck in the middle. I saw a recent statistic where only about 7 cents out of every food dollar actually goes back to the farmer on average. Certainly depending on the product and depending on the crop, that can vary widely, but that's something that we've seen, where we've seen our products that we're selling at the wholesale level, maybe at a 6x multiplier in some of the stores. And all of that's going to packaging, transportation, and retail, and it's not actually reaching the farm. So as part of that process, we went ahead and about 10 years ago, vertically integrated, we put in a sheller and processing plant and started to go big time. We're still relatively small, about 1/60th of the size of many of the larger processors. But from the organic perspective, we're up there in the same order of magnitude with a lot of other processors. So this is not something that is necessarily going to work for everybody, but for us, it worked out fairly well because we're doing 100% of our product that we grow organically. And that means that we can actually be a player in this small niche market. One of our main goals is to make family farms, small family farms, sustainable. We're relatively small. We only have about 230 acres that we farm. But there are people who are much smaller than us. And I met, a processor the other day who only had 7 acres, but he had a day job. He couldn't afford to make it on farming income alone. And so working with some of the other farmers that we buy walnuts from and process, as well as our own, we're wanting to make sure that we can keep these small family farms going. And that's one of the reasons why it was exciting to be invited to present today, is because we want to give people the tools that we've been able to figure out to make this work because of the size that we are. Big farms can't do some of the things that we're doing here, and that's pretty cool. Elizabeth asked how we decided how much of our operation we're going to do wholesale versus direct to consumer. It wasn't really a decision. It was more of an evolution. We've gotten to about between 10 and 15% goes direct to consumer, but the vast majority of our operation is wholesale. And speaking of wholesale operations, when we talk about walnut shipments, we're not talking about individual boxes or even a pallet. Even with a small family farm of 250 acres, there still is a lot of walnuts involved. So it's fun when we get phone calls from consumers and customers who have bought off our website and they say, I'm a bulk customer. And I say, okay, how much did you order? Oh, I ordered 10 pounds. Well, that is bulk compared to when you're buying an 8-ounce bag in the store or a 1-pound bag in the store. But if you can see on the picture on the left, the brown boxes are a bulk pallet, and the white boxes are boxes that are packaged up ready to sell direct to consumers. Our normal process for selling to consumers directly over our website is we fill boxes just like we would for our larger bulk boxes. They get packaged up, run through the metal detector, sealed up with tape that it has our logo on it. So it's a form of safety seal. We pack up the boxes in advance, and then when the orders come in, we actually put them into an outer box that is supplied by the Postal Service, or an ore bag in the case of smaller package sizes, and ship those out. And here's an example of some packages that were ready to be shipped out to the post office. The one on the left was a larger day when we were having a sale. The one on the right is more typical for our daily type of shipment, where we have a few padded flight rate envelopes that we ship out, and then we also have some larger boxes, depending on what kind of storage capacity that a customer has and how much history they have with us. It seems to affect their willingness to spend for 10 pounds at a time versus just getting 2 or 3 pounds at a time. So that's a little bit about us, but now I have a question about you folks, because I got a chance to meet Isabel briefly, and I know some of the others that are on the call, but I'd like to get a little more background information from you about what it is that you're farming. Specifically, how hard is it going to be for you to be able to ship products to other places? Do you currently have a website? And what other locations do you sell other than wholesale right now, if at all? And do you have anybody that actually is considered a techie in your network?
Yeah, can everyone see the poll that was just launched? So there's 4 questions, like for you all to participate in that. You might have to scroll down depending on how you can view the poll. And Ryan, can you see the responses as they're coming in?
I can't see the responses yet.
Okay.
But I just finished filling out my own poll, so.
All
Maybe
right.
that's why. Mostly it was to get an idea, because I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about something that you guys have no interest in, even though I can talk at length about most of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Right. Okay, it looks like we got most of the folks to participate, or we got set. Okay. I'll give it just 3 more seconds, or a few more seconds here in case people are still moving through. Oh, yep, we got people participating. Thank you. Give it a little bit more time. All right. I think that's good. So I'll go to end it, and then you should be able to see the results once I do this.
Cool.
All right, you can see those?
Yep. So just sharing with the rest of the group, about 60% are perishable products, about 13% are shelf stable. I think that was me. About 13% was still figuring it out. And another one was not farming, but have an interest in agriculture. So this tells me that we're going to be talking a little bit more about perishable products. Farm website, about almost evenly split, slightly higher no than yes. Website, farmers market, another one has retail, a couple not listed, and most people have access to some form of techie, but some don't. Okay, cool. Thanks. Appreciate the feedback. It becomes important as we get into the meat of the discussion. So I attended a CAF session a few weeks ago that was on online sales, and it was 3 hours long, and they said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Because you can always learn more." One of the takeaways that I had was the who, what, where, when, why, and how is important when we're talking about this process. So who do you think your customers are? And the reason I asked the question about where are you selling already is because we actually had to go through this analysis, or we should have gone through it. Initially, we went through this analysis kind of by default. We think our customers fit into 4 main categories. The first was friends and family who like our walnuts and are actually willing to pay for them. This would be different than the ones that are not willing to pay for them and they just want them for free. We ended up getting orders from them, and they would be in the form of an email or a phone call or whatever. And they're like, "Hey, I'm not going to order anymore unless you let me pay." And so we had to come up with some way of letting them pay. And it made it easier once we had a website and a way of processing those transactions. Oh, can't you just take a credit card? I don't want to have to send you a check. Okay, fine, whatever. So that's one group of customers. Another one of our groups of customers are people who are willing to buy in bulk online. We had the joke earlier about bulk customers, how much is bulk? Well, 10 pounds for just about anybody is bulk. And we've gotten a lot of push to have much smaller package sizes. But for us, we're primarily a wholesale operation, and we weren't interested in doing the 1 pound bag and trying to figure out shipping options for that and efficiencies, because it's a lot, you can sell 10 pounds or you can sell one pound 10 times. And it's a lot easier to do one transaction than to do 10. And so we were deliberately focused earlier on people who are willing to buy in bulk and save some money that way over what they would pay in a grocery store. Another one that's really important is people who like the story of our family farm. And we didn't realize this early on. This is something that was not explicitly said to us when we started up our website. We were kind of intuiting that might be important, but as more and more people have been searching on the internet and finding our website and our story, they are buying from us because they like the story behind what's going on. I'm not just talking about some fairy tale, some good bedtime story or something. I mean, it's telling a story almost like a brief synopsis, like I did to you early at the beginning, of how it was we got to this point, what it is we're doing, why we're here, why it's valuable for them to buy from us and support us as a small family farm, as opposed to just buying it from the supermarket and they don't care where it came from. We've gotten away from everybody has a relative who grew up or lived on a farm, to the point where lots of people don't understand what farms are about, and they're looking for that connection back to the farm. And we appreciate them, because they are the ones that are willing to spend a little bit extra to help support this idea, rather than just buying the cheapest price they can find whatever store they're shopping at. Because the farmer gets a whole lot more benefit when people are reaching back to the farm and connecting back with the farm than if they're just buying a fungible good in the store. And that kind of leads into our last question, our last category, and that's people who value the quality we produce and deliver. And it's not just about we're producing or delivering a different quality for our direct-to-consumer sales versus our wholesale sales, because we like to believe that we're producing good quality for all of our customers. But really, when we have control over the product and we keep it in cold storage right up until the day that they order, and they ship it out, and we ship it out in an expedited manner, so it gets to them quickly, we have a higher level of confidence of the preservation of that quality. And we also get the feedback from the customer when there is anything that they like or don't like about it. Quite often when we're shipping a pallet or a truckload of bulk product to somebody else, we don't ever hear anything unless something happened that somebody was unhappy about. And that's fairly few and far between, but it's a little bit of a downer to get those negatives and not ever get the positives. Whereas when we're selling direct to consumers, we often get those attaboys, those, hey, great job, we really appreciate your product, we really like it. And it's really fun to hear those stories. Also how people eat them, how people are using them. They'll share recipes with us and a variety of things. So it's really cool to have that closer communication. But I'm gonna throw this back at you guys. Who are your customers? Because this is going to change over time. Early on, it was friends and family who were, not quite like siblings, but they were close enough that they were like, hey, I'd like to get them from your farm. And that grew into friends of friends of friends. And pretty soon it's just whoever has heard about us and who is interested in our product. Oh, this is a great source for organic walnuts. So we're going to go there and order from their website. But that has definitely evolved. Again, we've talked on the story, but I want to re-emphasize, your story for your farm is unique. We were talking with Isabel a little bit at the beginning of the call, and she's got a really interesting story that she's going to be able to tell. And hopefully she's taking pictures along the way to be able to tell the story of what is special about the farm, what you're trying to do with the operation that you have, and why it is that somebody should buy from you rather than somebody else. It's not sales. I mean, it is an aspect of sales, but it's really just communicating and explaining this is what we are. And people can make a decision about whether or not they want to value that and patronize your business. So now let's talk about what is it that you're actually trying to sell? Because you can't be everything to everyone. I think I talked about earlier that we early on started off selling just bulk product. Well, bulk in a small, 6 or 10 pound box. But for a lot of people, that is quite a bit of bulk. We didn't want to try and sell, 6-ounce bags to people in a postal letter or something like that, because we're primarily wholesale. We got the farming operation, we have the processing operation. We're small. We have a limited number of family members involved in the business, and so we wanted to make sure that we picked our area of expertise and our area of focus, and didn't try and do everything all at once. So even though we have peaches and cherries and persimmons and pomegranates and other types of trees on our farm, we only sell walnuts. And we did that quite deliberately, because one tree of peaches and one tree of pomegranates is not enough to really build an online presence out of, unless you're doing just that and you're living in town or something like that. Currently, we have 3 different sizes of packaging that we pack in. One is a bag that gets shipped in a flat rate envelope. Another one is a medium flat rate box, and the third size is a large flat rate box. That's 3. There will be a quiz. We also have several options for kernel sizes. We have small kernels, we have medium kernels, we have large pieces, we have halves and pieces. So there's 4 options there. And we also do something a little bit special, which is we do nuts that are dried with normal heat, like most walnut operations do. And then we also have an ambient air dried product, which is dried without using any additional heat. Quick question. How many possible combinations of product do we have at this point? That works out to 24 different SKUs. We had
Kaylee guess right before you said it, so she gets the prize.
Cool. And since this is virtual, we can just throw the swag over the internet. We don't have time to stock and deal with 24 different combinations. So what we've done is we've limited certain products to only one size. For example, the small pieces we only sell in a 3-pound bag. We don't sell the medium or the large flat rate boxes of those sizes, because otherwise our inventory goes crazy. And this is just walnuts, remember. What happens if we add one more item to any of these categories? Oh, I know. I had a guy come up to me the other day and said, I don't like the light colored walnuts. They don't have enough flavor. I want the dark colored walnuts. So we're going to do dark colored walnuts and all those different combinations. Now we're up to 48 combinations. It's enough to make you go crazy. So the important thing is what you're selling. You have an idea of what your customers want, and you may shift that over time too, but don't go overboard and try and, early on, somebody calls up and says, hey, I want to get this in this size of a container. Okay, let's talk. Maybe we can figure this out. But as you start getting a little bit of momentum, a little bit going on, you're going to be like, I'm sorry, you can buy 2 of this size or 1 of this much larger size, but we don't have anything quite in the middle just for you. Because otherwise your inventory control will go crazy. And this is something that you can see if you ever watch Shark Tank or anything like that, when they're talking about retail and they're talking about shirts, sizes, colors, styles, and the inventory will just, you'll have a huge amount of inventory sitting around just on the off chance that somebody calls up and says, I want to have that one piece of that size and all that configuration. So it's good to have some selection, but it's also important to not lose track of the sheer numbers and math that can drive you crazy if you try and do everything for everybody. Okay, so now the next question is when do you want your product to be available? And this is important because I was talking with somebody the other day who was looking at selling fresh cherries online. And fresh cherries online is a very different product than walnuts because it's perishable and you can't sell it all year round. And there was a huge discussion about whether or not they should even have a website, whether or not they should even be present year round. It's okay to do both, but the longer that your presence is online, even if you're not actively trying to sell something online, the more people are going to go, oh, you know what? I remember that place about cherries at Christmas time or when they're talking with their relatives and well, where did you get those yummy cherries this last year? Oh, I got them on this website. And if the website's not up and active, you're going to lose out on that next sale. So product availability is one thing, but then presence should probably be year round. We can talk about lost customers versus storage costs. With walnuts, because they're relatively shelf stable in a refrigerated environment, we can do it year round. But you want to set your customer expectations, your level of service expectations up front so that people aren't thinking that, they call up and they order right now, you're going to be running to the post office in 5 minutes after they give you their credit card, because that'll be a recipe to drive you crazy unless that's what you want to do and you have a high enough volume. It's not Amazon where stuff gets shipped out 24/7. So we end up shipping on business days when the post office is open, every day of the year that the post office is open. The rest of the time, hey, if you order on a Saturday or a Sunday or a holiday, well, we'll get to it the next day, the next business day, but we're not going to ship it out any other time because we don't have the ability to do that. Another question is, are you planning to run out of product? That's not always a bad thing. It does generate a certain amount more demand. You also have people who get more excited and, oh shoot, I missed. I got to sign up on your mailing list for next year so that I'm there when you get product. But we try not to do that because we found that for our product, at least, even though there is a little bit more of increased demand, at the end of the day, we'll lose out on more sales than we want to. And so generally we'll try and keep enough product on hand to supply an average set of demand for the full year. But there are occasions when on a particular item we'll run out because somebody will get excited about it and we'll sell a lot more than we thought we were going to. And so when that one item runs out, we try and have at least another size of that item available. We try not to be completely out of medium pieces, for example, because some people use those for their recipes. But if they have to buy a box of medium pieces instead of a bag of medium pieces, it's not the end of the world if they really desperately need those medium pieces. But we try not to run out of any particular size, any particular kernel size for very long, because it causes problems and we lose customers that way. I'll give you a prime example right now. Our cardboard manufacturer, there was a hiccup with our supply chain. And so all of our 10-pound boxes are back ordered and we're not going to be getting any for another week or so. So none of our 10-pound box items for halves and pieces or for the ambient air dried or the heat dried, we don't have any of that available right now. But we do have 2 6-pound boxes, which makes 12 pounds if somebody is really looking for that 10 pounds of product. If we were out of both 12 and 6 or 10 and 6-pound boxes, we'd be in trouble. But the important thing to take away here is have an actual conversation and think about what exactly it is when exactly you want to have your product available. I know somebody who's very successful in walnut marketing that only ships once a year. She has built her business model on emphasizing the freshness and cracked out right after harvest, and does a bunch of pre-orders, and she hypes it up for months beforehand. And then when harvest happens and she's able to get fresh crack, she ships it out to all her customers, and that's it for the rest of the year. So this is not something that needs to own you 24/7, but you will have a reduced amount of customers if you do not stay open all year round. And the beauty of computers is that you can stay open all year round, and you don't necessarily have to be there in person. You just have to make sure that you communicate what those expectations are to your customers in advance, so that they aren't wondering what happened to that shipment. I know a number of companies that ship out once a week, and you have to make that decision whether or not you want to go down that path, but it is certainly a viable business model. Okay, where do you want to sell your product? There are a lot of online options. You can sell it on your own website, farm to door, Amazon. You can sell in person. Retail stores are really tough to get into, but if you happen to own one, it's easy to get in there. A roadside stand is often where a lot of people will want to start selling, or farmers markets. Farmers markets have their own set of challenges, but they are also a really great way to get feedback on what package sizes and what products you're selling, especially if you're in fresh produce. We do our own website sales, and we do a very limited amount of farmers market sales in partnership with another organic farmer. But for the most part, it's for our direct to consumer, it's only on our website. And now we want to know why you're doing this. Is it to get more money? That can be part of it. We appreciate having better feedback from our customers. I think I already touched on that. Higher quality, because we have control over the supply chain compared to having it sit in the store for however long, unrefrigerated. We think that we get a lot better feedback, and our customers get a lot better value by buying from us directly. We have more control over the process. It's diversification. I mean, our wholesale is fairly robust, and we're doing just fine with that. But by having the direct to consumer sales, we also have that additional revenue stream. So if one of our wholesale customers decides to go a different direction, it's not the end of the world. I would not necessarily recommend this for more time off. And then questions about how do we want to sell? We can do it on our website. There are a number of online marketplaces. Certainly everybody's heard of the last four. We currently sell through our own website at fillmorefarms.com, and we use WordPress and WooCommerce as our engine to handle those web sales. But a really great resource that Elizabeth was referring to earlier has been put together by a number of different entities, including CAF. And I'm going to give you a link to it in just a minute, but it basically covers the different farmer to farmer and farmer to customer e-commerce platforms. And so this is the first page of a PDF, but you can see here, they list out Barn to Door, Farmigo, Gray's Cart, Harvey, Squarespace and Square and Shopify and Open Food Network. And down at the bottom, you can see WooCommerce. If you look, you can also see the monthly fees or ranges of fees that a lot of these different options have. And I would say you want to do a little bit of research here, because the question that I asked earlier about, do you have a techie in your network, is really important here. Some of these are, you pay a bunch of money and they set most of it up for you and you're pretty good to go. Others take a little bit more work, but there is no such thing as a free lunch, and you will end up paying if you don't know how to run it yourself. For example, I looked at these numbers and I was thinking, our total all up costs per month for our website and our hosting and the different software that we're running on it and all that, I think is probably less than $50 a month. And so most of these numbers here are more than that if you get into some of the higher end packages that you can get. Here's the entry for WooCommerce, in case you wanted to see what it looks like. There's some farmer comments, talks about the different sales channels, and it gives the different breakdown of the star ratings. And it also has an article that you can click on to get more detail about WooCommerce.
And Ryan, I posted the resource in the chat for folks, so you'll have access to that. And also just a time check, I think you're on about slide 17. You got about 10 minutes left.
I need to move it right along. Okay, yeah, great resource. You guys are going to have access to this slideshow afterwards. So here's a good link for getting access to that. So platform choice. You want to go with one system or do you want to go with multiple systems? Here's an example of our login for WordPress. You need to make sure you have a domain name, and picking your domain name is a challenge in and of itself. You want to make sure you're careful with trademarks and other things. But you don't have to have a domain if you're going to be going with some of these other platforms, but it's probably a good idea to get one if you're going to be doing much in the online area. Make sure you own it, that it's not being rented by somebody else. There's plenty of information online about how to do that, but you want to have control over that domain. So if you get unhappy with a particular hosting provider, you can switch to a different one. How you want to do your shipping. There could be a whole class just on this session. Your shipping integration options depend on your platform. If you're doing something like a WordPress WooCommerce plugin, there are going to be shipping plugins for that. If you're going to with somebody like Square or Squarespace, I think they have a lot more integrated solutions. But shipping can make or break you. If you don't get the shipping right, you're going to lose money on every single sale, and it's only useful for marketing purposes. Market research, that is. If you get the shipping right, you can actually make money at this. So it's really important. We use pirateship.com with a data export. So it actually feeds into PirateShip, which is a separate integration. But many plugins exist for WordPress, and you can see some examples here. This is the WordPress dashboard. Payments is another integration that's important. I've heard some numbers for payments that are really, really expensive. You should be paying about 3% for credit card fees, but it breaks down to different pricing models. You can have a transaction fee per transaction model. You can have a percentage of each transaction model. You can have a monthly fee on top of that. So you need to shop around. And again, about 3% is about what you should be paying per transaction at the end of it all to be able to stay profitable. If you try and do it yourself, where you're just taking the credit card over the phone and writing it down, there are some definite security problems with that. Claim your Google identity online. If you don't know what that is, we'll go through it briefly, but here, for example, is the one for Fillmore Farms. It shows our location on the map. It has things like our address, our hours of operation. It has things like reviews and pictures. We want to make sure that information is correct, because this is the equivalent of having a white pages entry back in the old days of telephone books. You want to make sure the information is correct so that people know how to reach you. There's a whole bunch of benefits that you can have by claiming your Google identity, but basically you follow this, Google it, follow the steps, you get a postcard to prove to your address to prove that you are who you say you are, and then you get login information to be able to update that online. You can answer questions, you can respond to reviews. It also helps you reach people if they're looking for somebody local that has the particular item that you're selling. So you got to connect to your customers, because you may have the greatest food and freshest, best tasting carrots in the world, but if you don't have a place to sell them, or people don't know it, you're going to have a lot of carrots to eat. So you need to create or update your other social media accounts. And one of those important things is to get a Facebook business page rather than just a Facebook personal page, because there are lots of things you can do with that. Twitter account can be useful, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, others. Depends on where you're active and where your demographic group that you're reaching out to is. I listed those because we have accounts on all of them, but there are others out there that certainly should not be ignored if that's where your people that you're wanting to reach are located. All of them should have the key elements in place to share your story. So here's an example. I can't even recite which one is which. My wife put this collage together, but it's our website and our Pinterest and our Facebook and our Twitter and our Instagram and our, missing the last one, all of our different accounts. But we want to have them have a similar theme across. If we're posting stuff in the fall, we want it posted to all the locations. When you're putting things online, you want to make sure you have some goals for what you're going to accomplish. Do you want people to make an online order? Some people want somebody to just call up and say hi on the phone. Do you want to have people be able to learn more about you? Or this one gives me the shudders. Do you want to encourage people to visit your farm? We don't particularly want farm visits out of the blue, but I was talking with somebody else who was very actively encouraging people to come visit their farm and get some of their olive oil. So it all depends on what your goal is for when you're posting online as to how you craft that online persona. And then what's your call to action? Do you want people to email to sign up to get notifications from you that you have fresh rutabagas available? Or do you want them to follow you on social media so that they can see posts about the wonderful things you're doing on the farm? Or do you want to get notified that they've made an online order? A positioning statement. Again, this is not just related to farming, but this is all kinds of online presence. Should be present everywhere you have an account. It says who you are, what is your offering, and how you're serving your customers. Doesn't have to be super long. It's almost like a mission statement. You also need to have your story we talked about earlier. Why are you different? What's unique to your particular business? Why should people care? And we put some of ours, it's not perfect, but if you want to go look some more at our email or our website and about. So now you got all these different accounts, you got to juggle them and make sure that they have a consistency of theme throughout the online presence. And I was going to skip over this section. My wife said, no, you absolutely have to touch on this. So Canva.com is a company that provides free and paid versions of making consistent artwork and branding that you upload your logo, and then they will create the different font colors and everything else from that to go across all these different platforms. And I don't know much more about it than that, but she says it's great. And so it's something to look into, at least if you are looking to try and maintain all those different key elements across the different platforms and you're pulling your hair out because you're spending more time at the computer than actually farming. This one's important. I think we touched on it earlier, but establish what your customers' expectations are and then meet them. Communicate what to expect for the sale. How long is it going to take to ship? What's the method you're going to use to ship it? What's the cost? Got one customer that refuses to take US Postal Service and pays extra for UPS because of the way that they do deliveries at their house. Okay, but by us explaining that we ship USPS only, she was able to call us and have a conversation and say, I can't get USPS packages at my house. They sit out at the end of the gate, at the end of our long driveway. I need to get UPS. And we had that conversation. Shipping time, normally is 2 to 3 days for our shipments. When it takes 2 weeks, a customer calls up, says, hey, I still haven't got my walnuts. They're in LA, and the package, we can look at the tracking and it's in New York instead of LA, which has happened more than once. We can cover that. But if the customer doesn't know what to expect, they just think that we took their money and didn't do anything. And so they don't necessarily have a trigger to call us back and say, hey, something went wrong. How do you communicate your return, your refund policy? You want a phone call for everything, or do you want to deal with stuff with email? Do you want an interactive system on your website to be able to get those requests? And then what happens when you don't meet those expectations? When we ship a package and the customer is in LA and the package goes to New York, we have a couple of options. We can say, oh, that's the Postal Service's problem. It's not our fault. We didn't control that. Or we can say, you know what, just like Costco or Amazon do, would you like a refund? Would you like us to ship you a new package? Would you like a coupon off your next order? How would you like for us to handle this? And most of the time, what we do is we'll ship out another package to them just to make sure that they're happy. And they end up getting both packages and they're even more happy, and they recommend us to their friends, and we get additional sales because of it. We very rarely have regretted sending out a duplicate or repeating or a new package of product to somebody who had a hiccup with their order. Because if your customer's not happy, they can go away. That's not the end of the world for some customers, but they can also give you a bad review, which are very hard to get rid of. Or they can influence all the other people that they have meet in their life saying, oh, if you're going to buy online organic walnuts, don't buy them from them because they have horrible customer service. We're getting close to time. Your shipping choices will drive what size packages you want to sell, because differences in shipping can make tens or many dollars difference in terms of the cost to ship it. So don't just ship a 5-pound box because that's what everybody does. It's okay to ship a 6-pound box because that's filling up the box. Different carriers and different plans may require different sizes of packaging. We use US Postal Service because they're cost competitive for what we're doing and they get it to our customers in a hurry. But there are obviously other options available. You're going to hand deliver it. I'm going to use a drone. Make sure that your packages integrate together so that you don't have to type information in from one place to another. It's never fun to have addresses messed up because you typed them in the wrong way. Tracking the information so you can analyze it further and see what's going on. Let's see, there's a bunch of gotchas. If you're doing an email list or notification, you must have an unsubscribe button on your emails. Payment information security, customer accounts. You got to watch out for making sure you don't step over the line on some of these. And earlier we talked about if you are doing things yourself, if you're paying somebody else to do your configuration and your setup of your online presence, you're going to pay them again and again when things come up and you need to make changes. If we run out of a particular package or a particular size, we need to be able to go in and update our system to say, hey, no, we no longer have that in stock. We can't wait for somebody else to get back from vacation to update that. So there will be a learning curve where you do need to learn about some of the maintenance yourself, even if you don't set it up originally on your own. Email from your own domain, if at all possible. You can still use G Suite with your own domain. We do on a regular basis. There are ways to set it up. If you're doing social media, you got to feed it. You can't just let it starve. Growth will take a certain amount of time. And above all, you're here today, but educate yourself so that you're not having to have somebody else do this for you. Why again do you really want to do this? It can make a huge difference. We actually make quite a bit more on our direct sales than we do on wholesale, even after we put our costs into place. It's a lot easier to lose your reputation than it is to gain it. Don't try and do everything all at once, and try and grow incrementally if you can, because if you go too fast, everybody's heard the Groupon horror stories. Please try and leave each customer happy they purchase directly from the farmer. It helps you, it helps us, it helps the entire industry reach out and rebuild this dialogue with the consumers who have lost their connection to the farm. There's a bunch of information. For more information from the Tech Hub, you can also look at YouTube videos for just about everything we talked about today. Take a class, watch some videos. I got a link here for Pirate Ship. They have lots of really informative videos on how to do shipping through a variety of different medium. Google it. All right. 39 minutes, not too bad.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing all that information. And we have time for questions from the audience. So any of you in attendance, if you guys would like to chime in now, you can post it in the chat. You can raise your hand and we can call on you, but please feel free to just go off mute and ask away anything that's come up for you. Anyway, I can get us started because I know I had a couple questions, Ryan, that I didn't realize about you. But with the inventory control, like, you're saying 24 items that you basically are offering. Did you figure out what that golden number kind of was for you, with the capacity you have with the personnel power to, process so many shipments?
Yeah, so it's not so much the quantity of shipments as it is trying to track and make sure that we have enough packed of each size. So, what we don't want to do is pack up 100 or 200 boxes of one size and then have that go all season long. We'd much rather be able to crack out and pack relatively soon and then sell it relatively soon, because that fits into our quality. And so picture, any perishable item. The walnuts are not as perishable as some, but they still do have a shelf life. We don't want to have product that's been sitting in the box for a very long time. So we're trying to pack enough to always have enough in stock, but then also to run out just in time for the new crop to become available, right? And so early on when we were doing this, we were only doing maybe four products. We were doing the heat dried and the ambient air. We were doing an 11-pound box at the time and a 7-pound box of each. So that's 4 combinations. And even then we would run into, we ran out of 7-pound boxes of the heat dried. Okay, well, we got to pack some more of that. And so we would schedule a packing day for that. Because when we're doing a packing day, we are there. It's a process where we're going through cleaning the equipment, doing a deep clean on it, making sure that everything is ready to go from a food safety perspective. And then we actually run the line while we're packing the boxes. And then once we have a pallet or however much we're going to pack, we go ahead and shut everything down. Well, we don't want to pack one box. I mean, very, very early on, my mom was packing each box by hand, and that was not sustainable for very long. And so as we've grown and matured, we're still looking at the number of items that we have in inventory and going, all right, we don't get a lot of demand for 10 pounds or 12 or 15 pounds or however much would fit into a large flat rate box. But here's where the shipping method that we're using, this flat rate box, really drives backwards what it is we have that we make available. So if we're gonna pay the money, it's like $20 for a flat rate box to ship with the postal service. We don't want to ship only 10 pounds of small pieces in that, because that's how many kernels how many halves we can fit in. We can fit a lot more small pieces, but there are relatively few requests that we're getting for a larger package size of small pieces. And so we've decided not to carry that as an option. Down the road, maybe we get some more requests, some more demand, our volume goes up, and it might be a choice. But for now, it doesn't seem to be very important. We, for a long time, didn't carry the 2.5 and 3 pound bags of product. We only did the boxes because we didn't want to deal with anything smaller. We have got lots and lots of requests for the smaller bag product. And so that's why we decided to do the bag product. We don't have nearly as much of a margin on that. The price is higher for the customer, and it's also higher for us to ship. The price per pound for shipping is quite a bit higher. So it wasn't, and also the number of interactions that it takes to sell, 100 pounds of walnuts is much higher as well. So it's not our favorite, but we understand that there's quite a bit of demand for that. And what has happened is that the people who are buying the 2.5 pound and 3 pound bags often will say, you know what, those are good walnuts. Maybe I can buy 6 pounds next time. And so that has helped evolve their purchasing habits. And it's not a loss leader, because we're still able to make a little bit of money on it, but it's definitely not as much of a margin as some of the bigger boxes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I know there's a lot there. You have to do all the analysis to know what your customer demand is. So thank you for just highlighting some of the factors that are important to make those decisions. All right. So I see a question in the chat, but others, please feel free to chime in. So Kaylee wants to know what's on the horizon. Are there any website changes or new products, packaging that you all are looking to implement?
Yeah, so that is a really good question, Kaylee. Thanks for raising that. We're always looking at the website, and every time we visit it, we're going, oh, well, we need to change this. We need to change that. We need to, those of you who look at the website and compare it to my presentation are going to go, wait, you talked about this, but you didn't necessarily do it yourself. So we're always looking to improve it. One of the things that we did early on was we focused on, and we worked really deliberately and hard on not requiring people to create an account to buy from us. We've all experienced going to a website where you are forced to create an account and you start getting a bunch of emails and all kinds of junk, as a result. And we didn't want our customers to be shying away from buying from us online because they thought that we're going to get, spammed to death. So we disabled that portion on our website where you do not create an account. And now we're realizing that we probably should have left it as an option where people could create an account if they want to, because then they can do a recurring order, for example, almost like a subscription, which would be really valuable for the people who do order on a regular basis. And they can say, hey, every 6 weeks, send me another package or whatever. There's some data privacy concerns that go along with that, because you need to have a fairly safe integration with whatever you're using for payment processing, so that you're not storing credit card information on your website, because there's all kinds of rules about how you have to safeguard that. And if your website ever gets hacked, you have to notify everybody. And so we've chosen to steer clear of storing any credit cards on our website. But having an account where people can log in and see their past orders, for example, or a bunch of past orders, would be valuable. And so that's probably something we're going to change. Also, we're always looking at adding new products. Not necessarily wanting to, but we probably will add some more products as we go along, because we certainly see the demand for them and the interest from our customer feedback.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have another question. From Grace, did you have to hire an additional person or people to support the direct to consumer sales?
The answer is sort of. Early on, my mom was doing most of the packing herself. And because she was very concerned about quality control and she wanted to make sure that every box that got sent out was just, superb. We were able to convince her that we actually have a really good crew of people that are working in the plant doing the wholesale packaging that are fully capable of being trained and empowered to do the packaging themselves. And that took a lot of burden off of her. So in a sense, we hired other people to do that portion of it, but it wasn't because we couldn't do it. It was because it was more efficient to have the crew that was already trained to do that, doing it on a regular basis. We do have one person who spends maybe an hour a day shipping out product or getting ready to, and then but my wife or I or one of our family members still takes them to the post office. We could send them with a postal carrier if we wanted to, but we'd rather not have the boxes clunking around in the back of the vehicle as they're doing their route. And so it's a fairly quick jaunt up to the post office and we pick up the mail at the same time. So the answer is yes, sort of, but it wasn't a full-time position. This person is doing a lot of other work besides. It's just one of their duties during the day. And we've been able to train them in on how to go onto the website, print off the invoices or the packing slips, print off the postage, and then go ahead and package up the boxes. So if one person was doing all the work, then yes, it would probably take one person packing everything up, filling the boxes to begin with. But we go through a pack day with several people, and then we store it in cold for a number of days or weeks. And then as orders come in, we will take those individual boxes, the brown boxes, and put them inside of a white box that is the Postal Service supplied box, and then ship it out. So that portion on a daily basis, it doesn't take very much. Even on a day when we're shipping out, 100, 150 items, yeah, we pull 2 or 3 people from other jobs and we work on it for a couple of hours, but it's not a full-time position by any stretch. If somebody were doing all of it, the website, the social media, everything else, yeah, it could be a full-time job. It'll suck as much time as you'll be willing to give it.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then another question from Tammy. Did you get a USDA value added producer grant or other special funding to help you get set up?
That's a great question. We actually looked into it quite a bit early on, but we decided not to go down that path, mostly because my parents and the rest of the group don't like to share a whole lot of information publicly. I'm kind of the anomaly. And with the value added producer grant, you do have to fill out a certain amount of disclosures and information about it. It is a great program from what I can tell. Certainly there are some definite financial assistance incentives to get utilizing it. But because we were an established wholesale business and we already had, a stream of funding from that, it was relatively straightforward for us to, dabble in the direct to consumer sales and we weren't betting the whole farm on it. This was very much a side gig starting out, and we already had the equipment and the crew and everything else in place. And so it's just a matter of my wife and I spending some time on our website development, and then also putting some of the pieces in place to handle the transactions. So no, we did not do the value added producer grant. However, I would encourage people to look into that because it absolutely can make a difference if you're looking at either make or break dollars being able to pay for some of the pieces that go into it. What I would encourage you to not do is spend lots and lots of money up front, because you can do a lot of sales without spending a lot of money to begin with. Most of this is going to be time cost, not money cost, as you're learning about the different aspects, because we covered a lot of different areas that each of which could take 2 or 3 hours of class time.
Great, thank you. All right, maybe we have time for one more question. If anyone has anything they'd like to ask, please feel free to chime in or put it in the chat.
I have a question unless someone else does. Ryan, when people discover your website, I'm sorry if you already mentioned this, but do they just mention that they randomly Google searched and found you, or they know of you from before and then they happen to start using the website? Or I guess I'm curious as to how do people stumble? How have you learned that people stumble on your website?
Search engine optimization 101.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a really good question, Hannah. So I don't know. Early on, we had a presence. We've had a website for a long time. It went through a number of different iterations. And so there are techniques like enabling the robots to be able to actually look at your website, registering it with Google so that they are actually scanning it, making sure that that gets indexed. We got mentioned on a couple of sites because we are an organic walnuts only facility. There was a mention on a blog that somebody posted about food allergies, that we're a source for getting organic walnuts that don't have any cross-contamination concerns, or I shouldn't say any concerns, but they're very dramatically reduced because we only do organic walnuts in the plant. So there are a variety of ways that we got referenced. We, for quite a bit of time, were in the top 5 on Google for organic walnuts search. I did a keywords ad buy a while back and it was worthless. We got very, very little business because of that. So the organic placement that you can get from positive mentions on social media and from other people saying, hey, this is a great place to buy walnuts or whatever product it is, that's why it's so important to have this, to be telling a story and to be a real website, not just trying to pump and dump, right? And so ironically, if you do a search for organic walnuts, out of the top 10 or so that show up on Google as listed sites for that search, we actually sell to maybe 6 or 7 of them, and they resell our walnuts under their own name. So we're one of those sites, but it's a relatively small world. If you're trying to sell fancy shoes or something else, or auto parts, there's going to be so many different other competitors looking for the eyeballs that it's going to be really hard to reach out. But the more narrowly you can tailor your message, the more likely it is you're going to be in the top web searches once you have a presence online. But that's why I say it's so important to have your own domain and start using it and have some form of presence. Get your Facebook account that actually has your farm name on it. Even if you're only doing a little bit on it from time to time, it's better than not having anything on there, because a lot of these different social media presences do matter how long you've had it. We've all seen how long somebody's had an eBay account, and I'm not necessarily recommending eBay as a form of presence, but it's establishing this history online that you're not just a fly-by-night organization and just didn't pop up to do a bunch of sales and then going to disappear again.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan, for sharing that. And there's a lot of little tips and tricks for increasing your search engine optimization as people Google for the thing that you're selling. Like if you have your photos uploaded on your website with an actual name that represents your product and your farm, that can increase your search engine optimization via the different search engines. So there's little tips and tricks. The Tech Hub is definitely here to help with that type of stuff too, if folks are interested in that. But we'll go ahead and round out today's workshop. I'm just going to share a few more slides here on our Tech Hub and for this webinar series, and then we'll close up shop. But thank you everyone again for attending. This is being brought to you by Community Alliance with Family Farmers, and our Small Farm Tech Hub provides free support resources to farmers on these topics. So again, here's a link. I also have it in the chat if folks are interested in submitting a request for free technical support. Our next webinars that we have going on, I realize, can you guys see my screen?
No, I was about to jump in, Elizabeth. We still see Ryan's Q&A.
Oh, Ryan, can you close out? I think I clicked it, but you're maybe still sharing.
No, it's good.
Okay. New share. Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. Yeah, so we have the upcoming webinars are on May 16th and May 23rd. And this is just a little snapshot of who we're going to be highlighting. So the next webinar on May 16th is going to be featuring Central Park Farms, and lots of just good information that will be shared during that. So please feel free to share these with your network as well. These are free, open to anyone to attend. And yeah, and that's it from CAF. So we have our mailing list for folks who are new to CAF. We have different special alerts that you can sign up for if you're interested in receiving additional newsletters and bulletins from our various programs at CAF. We have a great YouTube channel that has a whole bunch of free tutorials and different workshops that you can look back at. And we're going to be uploading this workshop to YouTube as well. And we'll be sending a link to that to everyone who attended. So please feel free to forward that along as well once you get those links. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll close out the webinar. So I appreciate everyone's time.